He really is terrific, and he'll challenge you and help you. His business is people, your business is people, so he really is our perfect lead-off speaker for this morning. So please welcome Dan Murray.
Thanks, Andrew. So I looked out the window and I knew something was wrong. It wasn't something wrong with the plane, it was something wrong with me. See, I was flying back from New Zealand where I had this amazing gig. I was running a $130 million program for a massive organisation over there. Back here in Australia, I just won the biggest award for my company, the biggest company at the time in Australia. I was doing all of these big projects and I was really good at it. I was successful. My career trajectory looked like this. But at this moment, with a little bit of altitude and a few red wines, I knew something was really wrong. What I found was, on reflection, this was all very empty. Actually, my whole life was empty. Every project I did was a bit like doing a Sudoku. Like when you're doing it, it's intellectually stimulating, and when you finish, what do? You just turn the page. No one cares. And I realised at this point that despite everything, I was broken. And at that point, my whole life fell apart. I went through a marriage breakup, I went through all sorts of challenges, I left my career, and I was lost. And at that point, there was a moment of leadership, a tiny little moment, a little tiny moment that happened many, many years before that came to my mind. I'm going to share that story with you later, but let me tell you about the journey it took me on. See, it took me to the remote northeast of Thailand, and that's where I met this girl, Malik. When I first met Malik, she'd just been dropped off by the police. Her mother had passed away from HIV, and the only thing that she left her with in the whole world was that same virus. Malik had large open wounds on her arms and legs. Her hair was this mess of dried blood and head lice. She was very underweight. We took her to a local hospital and the doctor said, she's not good. A couple of weeks, months at most. I left my time there, not sure if I'd ever see Malik again. But I journeyed back 6 months later. When I got there, this little girl came up and gave me a glass of water. Wow. I was blown away. In just 6 months, this little girl had completely transformed. She's now 13, she's happy, she's healthy, she loves dance, and she wants to be a teacher to help other kids. And what was even more incredible to me was that no one at this home thought this was remarkable. This was BAU. And I knew at that moment there was some magic here I had to understand. Because this sort of stuff doesn't happen in this beautiful big corporate world that I've been working in. How does this magic happen here? So I spent some time with the people, particularly the staff. Wow, they're amazing. This is May Dara. Her job was to make meals for the kids. She would cook 80 meals 3 times a day, 7 days a week. And she did it all with this big, beautiful, beaming smile. I didn't speak much Thai. She didn't speak much English. She gave me a nickname which sounded cute, Tut Guy. Anyone who knows any Thai knows that means big bum. And she called it all the time, big smile, loved it. This was the attitude she had. Unfortunately, where she was doing her work wasn't so great. Those 3 rusty gas burners was all she had. Those hoses went along the ground, over a sink, through an open window to gas bottles that weren't tied down or secured at all. All the OH&S related people are freaking out now, aren't they? They'd covered that wall, had covered her ventilation, the fan, it hadn't worked in years. And when I asked her about the PowerPoint, she said, oh, no. So there was clearly a lot of things we could do to fix this place up, and that was what I was there to record. What can we do to fix this place up? Came back to Australia working with this beautiful charity called Hands Across the Water. We got a bunch of Australian guys. You can tell they're Australian, can't you? Look at that bum crack. Ooh. They got on a plane, they paid their own way, they went over and they spent time renovating this place. They came back and went, that was incredible. When can we go again? And that same group of guys has gone back time and time again. They're there right now, supporting another home, rebuilding and changing the outcomes for those people. Now, look, what they created was absolutely fantastic. I think you'll agree this is an appropriate kitchen to be making 80 meals 3 times a day, 7 days a week. But when I really reflect on it, it's not about the stuff. It's not about the stuff, it's all about the people. See, if you want amazing outcomes, you need amazing people. We need to embrace these amazing people in our lives, and we need to find them and foster them and cultivate them. If you heard Steve Fordham yesterday, that's exactly what he does. He finds people, he builds amazing people, and they create amazing outcomes. And this doesn't just translate in the charity world. Let me give you a little example from business world. Back in the mid-90s, Continental Airways wasn't doing so well. They just went into their second bankruptcy, and the culture, well, wasn't great. The CEO used to have armed bodyguards follow him around because staff would often want to confront him. Not a great culture. So they fired that CEO and brought in this guy, Gordon Bethune. Now, to say Gordon transformed Continental is a massive understatement. He took them from last in every single metric for an airline to the best airline in the world 6 years in a row. He took their share price from $2 a share to $50 a share. They merged with United and became the biggest airline group in the world. Amazing outcomes. In an interview, an interviewer said to Gordon, "Look, we noticed that you're an airline mechanic in the Navy when you were young. Is it your intimate understanding of planes that helped you turn this thing around?" He said, "No, not really. I just knew how fast I could fix a plane when I wanted to fix a plane versus how fast I could fix a plane when I didn't want to fix a plane. And in that gap, well, that's where all the money was." And it sort of makes sense when you say it like that. But then I go and work with project managers. They do their Gantt charts by multiplying hours and people and numbers and putting it in spreadsheets, and I say, "Cool, what if they don't want to do it?" And they go, "No, it doesn't fit in the spreadsheet. Let's just ignore it." At our peril. What we know is that those who understand us have the right to lead us. Those who get us, we want to follow. And my challenge to you today is, why can't we understand people more? Where is this gap? Why is there such a problem? The biggest challenge I see in any business is understanding people, because people are the most powerful and complex thing in every single business. Understanding people should be our number one priority. So why is it so hard? Well, you see, business is complicated, but humans are complex. You might not have heard of this differentiation between these two words. Let me explain. I've got a degree in mathematics. Now, I don't tell that to people at barbecues because they stop talking to me, but I do, I'm sorry. And for me, this is sort of nice, isn't it? It's a little bit cute. See, it looks really complicated, there's lots of moving parts, but once you work it out, it's pretty stable, isn't it? That's complicated. Lots of moving parts, but pretty stable. Humans, not so much. Oh, you send a guy to the shops to get salad dressing, you don't know what he's coming home with. And we've all done this, haven't we? You walk in, I've got a list. This is what I'm getting. I'm going into the shops with my list. I walk out, I'm eating Oreos because they're half price. And I've got a whole bunch I bought shoes because, they were nice. Little things can make a huge difference in our lives or no difference at all. And big things can make a big difference or no difference at all, and everything in between. That's complex. See, part of our challenge is this is the theory that backs most business. Economics 101. Individuals always make prudent and logical decisions to maximise their utility. Hands up if you believe that. Even economists scoff. Right? If humans are rational, how many types of car would there be? Maybe a small, medium and large. Right? It'd be more like a Happy Meal than what you see on the road today. You wouldn't change the headlights from one year to the next when they worked perfectly fine that year, would you? We do this stuff all the time. Humans are strange creatures. And we really need to foster understanding. And this is where, when I talk about empathy, this is what I mean. Empathy is about understanding why people do what they do. It's not sympathy, it's not feeling what they feel. It's understanding them. It's not even walking in someone else's shoes, which is often the definition. Because the problem with that is if I walk in your shoes, whose experience do I have? I have my experience. If I want empathy, my experience is irrelevant. Your experience is all that matters. Empathy is understanding what's going on for other people. Now, why do we struggle with this? We're people, you're people. What's the big challenge here? We know it gets great results. We know we can do it. Why is it so hard? A big part of it is to do with this big lump in your head. Now, make no mistake, your brain is amazing. You have 85 billion neurons connected through trillions of pathways. Your brain is the most complex system in the known universe, and it's in your head. How lucky are you? The challenge is, it's really old hardware. Most scientists will agree that the brain hasn't changed much in 5 to 10,000 years. And if you looked at the last 5 to 10,000 years, humans have lived in sort of pretty consistent ways for most of that time. We lived in tribes. We lived in small, homogenous groups. You were born into a tribe of probably less than 100, often less than that, less than 50. And all of those people sung your songs, danced your dances, ate your food. Everything was consistent and nice and homogenous. You lived in a relatively stable environment. You didn't move too much. And the people over there, they were them. They weren't us. And understanding each other in that environment, well, that's fine. That's easy. It's just if you looked at that book of human history, suddenly you get to the last couple of pages, we have huge explosion in diversity, in technology, in interconnectedness, in globalization. We're no longer confronted with tribes. And this is great. Diversity is amazing and drives incredibly powerful results, and we need to embrace it. It's just that our brains aren't necessarily designed for it. We have to know this about the way our brain works. You see, your brain creates these things I like to call mental models. Imagine you're a baby, and you've got this massive filing cabinet in your head. When you're a baby, it's pretty much empty. From day one, you start learning things. You start writing out these little punch cards on what things are and how they work and how they interrelate, and you learn what a chair is and what a table is, and you know how they go together. And if you see a table and chairs in front of a shop, it's probably a cafe or a restaurant, and all of these associations get written down on these little cards, and it forms this beautiful way of understanding the world in your brain. And what we know is you get to about the age of 15 or 16, and you slow down dramatically on filling out new cards. You're pretty confident that you know everything. If you're not sure on that, go and ask a 15 or 16-year-old. They will tell you they absolutely know everything. But all of that stuff isn't what we think it is. We often think that all of that stuff is objective fact. It's things that we've learned and it's truth. And it isn't necessarily. Let me give you an example. Imagine a guy named Barry. Now, if someone in here is named Barry, I apologise, I'm about to say nasty things. Ask the person next to you to console you. It's not about you, I'm sorry. Now, Barry is a bit of an asshole. Barry, he moves to the city. He's never really mixed with people, not like him. Moves to the city and he starts catching the train here in Sydney. Now, in Sydney, if you're not from Sydney, you don't line up to get on the train, but you sort of get on after the person in front of you. Now, one day Barry's there and he sees a person who looks like they're from India. Now, he doesn't know much about Indian people, but what he notices is they walk up to the edge of the train and they just sort of slide on at the same time other people are going on. Barry pulls out this card from the back of his mind and it says Indian people, not much on there, doesn't know much. Writes on there, that's a bit rude at getting on the train. When he files it away, he doesn't file it at the back, he files it at the front. He's looking for it now, right? Goes to the train station again, sees it again. Oh, these people must be rude at getting on the train. And really quickly, Barry can form this as an objective truth that he believes is real. Now, there's two big problems here. One, if we ask that person, are you rude at getting on the train? They would say, no, I was just getting on the train. And two, if we put Barry on a platform in Mumbai, he will never, ever get on a train. These things, these cultural identities that we build aren't facts. They're our subjective beliefs at best. And almost everything that sits in your brain is a subjective belief. It doesn't feel like it, but we need to know that this is how our brain works. I got to this point where I realised I was terrible at empathy. which is a bit strange when you start a company which is all about empathy. But I wasn't very good at it, and I thought if I could find a process and follow the process and practice, I'll get better. So I looked and I couldn't find a process. So I built one. And I continue to practice as much as I can every day and try and get better. And I want to share that process with you. The first step in that process is to be what I call consciously curious. To do this, you're going to help me. Look at this image, and I want you to answer 3 questions about this image you see. 1, when you see this image, what are the thoughts and ideas, words that come to your mind? 2, what would Barry say, our friend from the train, if he saw this image? What words would come to his mind? And 3, if you were going to help this person, how might you help them? So let's just yell out. Number 1, what do you see? Yell it out for me. Domestic violence. What else? Addiction, sadness. What else? Need. Right, so we're starting to form these words. So imagine a big card that we've just pulled it out of our heads, and these are the words that are on our card. Now, what would Barry see? Scrounger, bludger, broke tourist, drugs, alcohol, these sorts of... Cool, so this is Barry. Now, let's be just clear for a second. What we've done is we've pulled out that card. Your brain's gone searching, found the little card that says homeless woman, and these are the words that are on your card. And then your card, like everyone else's, has this little red line, and it says, don't say these things out loud in public. And this is where Barry lives. We've all got a bit of Barry. And our problem isn't that we've got Barry, and our problem isn't that we try and hide it. It's that if we want to build empathy, all of this gets in the road. All of it is assumption. All of it is pre-built. None of it is necessarily real. And what your brain does as a default, it goes in, finds the mental model and says, how can I confirm this? It looks for ways to confirm what you already believe. It doesn't look with curiosity. So our first step is to be consciously curious, because step 2 is we need to openly explore. We need to ask questions. We need to seek to understand. To do this, I want to share with you a little bit about Rebecca's story. And it's pretty challenging, but I'm sure it'll give us a little bit more insight into her as a person. 2 things happened when I turned 12. My father, who beat us up, he left home. The other thing is I started using drugs. One of my friends said, try this, it'll make you feel better, and it did. When I was 13, my mum found a new partner. He used to beat me up, and my younger sister too. For about a year I suffered through. When I was 14, I just couldn't take it anymore. I told Mum, either he goes or I go. Mum chose him. I ended up on the streets, sleeping in abandoned houses and buildings. If the only thing that happens to you in your life is you keep getting hurt, you end up saying, that's it, I'm not going to let this happen anymore. I've thought about ending it, but I get too scared. I just end up crying myself to sleep, and it's just such a terrible place to be. Sometimes you think, if I get through today, great. If I don't, it's no big deal. No one's going to miss me. To have the confidence to do something about where you are is especially hard. You have to build that confidence up. When you've been here for a while, you've lost all confidence in yourself. You think you can't do it, even if you try. Just to know someone cares is the main thing, I guess. Most people have no one. Then I met some volunteers, and they were willing to give up their time to come and see me, to worry about me personally. They took the time to listen to what I had to say, and it was great. That's what people need. Someone to be there, to talk to listen, someone they can trust. They care about me and miss me if I don't turn up, which makes me feel really special. Once we've had time to openly explore, then we can move on to step 3. Now we can challenge our model. Now we can pull that little card back out of our pocket that we hid away, we can look at this new information, and we can make any changes we want. This is the process of changing your mind, and you're free to do it anytime you like. And from there, you can make better decisions. Make better decisions to help people. This is what I call leading with empathy. You see, if I asked you before, how might you help her? Many of you might have said food or money, giving them something like that. But what's she really missing? Confidence. What does she really need? someone to talk to. And helping her now, we're in a better position to understand what she really needs. Now, at this point, we do something really stupid. When I was at high school, I was pretty poor growing up, and one day, this was my lunch. Woohoo! I was so excited. Just let me break this down, because your excitement isn't matching mine. This is roast chicken, hot chips, gravy, white bread roll, no nutrition, 100% awesome. And I'm just like ready to, like cartoon style, eat this thing. And as I'm about to eat it, a friend of mine, and she was a good friend, she came up and said, "That's disgusting. Do you know how many chickens suffer and die every year so people like you can eat things like this?" Oh, so annoyed. I was annoyed for 3 reasons. 1, I'm 14, it's lunchtime. I don't want to think about stuff. 2, I am in love with this sandwich and she is coming between us. And 3, I was pretty sure last week she was eating a hot dog. What had gone on here? Well, what had happened is my friend had become curious about animal rights. She'd gone off and explored and spoke to people and tried to understand new things, read books and articles. She had then changed her mental model. That little card went from saying eating animals is yummy to eating animals is horrible and murderous. She was now up there in that leading with empathy position, and she thought it was her job to challenge my mental model. How do you reckon that went down? I ate the sandwich. This is a terrible thing to do, and we do it all the time. We go away to conferences and events, we read books and articles, and we go back to people who don't see the world the same way as us, and what do? We tell them, "You're wrong. Let me tell you how we're right." You see it on Q&A, people sitting across the desk from each other, yelling at each other, expecting that one of them's going to go, "Oh, shit, oh, I'm such an idiot. Oh, thank you for enlightening me, Pauline." That never happens. And it doesn't happen for a couple of reasons, but there's one simple fact. You can't change someone else's mind. Full stop. Changing someone's mind is rewiring neural pathways inside their brain. Only person that can do it is owner of said brain. You can't change someone else's mind. So what great leaders do is they inspire curiosity in others. Sir David Attenborough is an incredible environmentalist. He's nuts for animals and the environment, isn't he? Loves it. Does he tell you to care about animals? Not really. What does he do? He piques your curiosity by showing you beautiful imagery, telling you these lovely stories. You journey with him, you explore with him. He opens your mind, and then you can change your mind or not. That's up to you. You can make new decisions or not, that's up to you. What great leaders do is they inspire curiosity in others. I'm going to be available for questions at the Speaker's Corner because we're running a bit short on time this morning. And I'd love to have a conversation with you about this. Because what I really believe is that we need leaders who build understanding. Because when you build understanding, you foster this sense of why we do what we do. Work goes from being personal and about a paycheck to being purposeful and about changing the world. And man, we need a lot more of this. The story that helped me get off the floor when everything fell apart, happened many, many years before. I was about 20, I'd saved up some money and I went travelling. It was my dream because as a poor kid, all I wanted to do was get out of this place. I wanted to go and see the world. And I got my backpack and I went to Thailand, total cliche. I was like a hairbraid away from just out of the, right out of the magazines. But I was on this train, it was rattling its way back into Bangkok. I've been on, it was an overnight train from Chiang Mai, and it was making its way through the back streets, and the smells of Bangkok were starting to hit us and woke me up. And as I was waking up, I saw a woman dressed in a uniform carrying a small wooden box, and she was walking down the aisle of the train, and she was collecting money from passengers who'd bought some food or drinks on the train trip. And I'd bought some food and had a drink, and as she reached me, I opened my wallet. My heart sunk. I didn't have any cash. It became incredibly apparent that the wooden box wasn't PayWave enabled, and I was going to be in a bit of trouble here. The language barrier, the tiredness, the anxiety, all of it started to well up. And it didn't make sense, but I started to get really, really agitated and worried and anxious, and she must have seen this. She must have seen this in my face. What she did was she turned around, walked back to the middle of the carriage, she pulled out her purse, took out 300 baht, about 10 Australian dollars. She looked at me, put it in the wooden box. As she walked back past, she just touched me on the shoulder and kept on walking. And now I don't know how much money you make working on the trains in Thailand, but I know it's not enough. You see, in that moment, she saw an opportunity to help. She saw an opportunity to connect and make a difference in someone's lives. And she decided to take it. These moments of understanding, these moments of leadership, they don't have to be big. They don't have to be massive. They don't need a grand structure and strategic change. They just need leaders to step up. And we're all leaders. Because of that lady, I went to Thailand. I've been back many times, raised nearly $500,000 to help the kids over there, and I do it because I love it. I never got to say thank you to her. But make no mistake, this was a leader who changed my life, and I'm forever grateful. My challenge to you all is, when's that moment going to come for you? When's that moment going to be there for you to build that understanding and empathy to make a real difference? I want to thank you all for listening this morning. Thank you.
For more information, visit our website, empathicconsulting.com.